Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Okay, so as we've been saying for weeks now, America is in the middle of a left-wing terrorism crisis. And obviously, the corporate media and even the independent media clowns on the left all over social media, they're doing everything in their power to muddy the waters. Every time we see a shooting, a bombing, an attack on a conservative or law enforcement, the left immediately scrambles to try to create a distraction or create confusion, or they'll push the same line for as long as they possibly can. We don't know the motive. Or, of course, in worse cases, to suggest that actually the attacker wasn't left-wing. No, he was a groyper. He was a right-winger. But time and time again, the truth keeps coming out. And the latest revelation in respect to this Joshua Jan character, well, it leaves no more room for doubt. This was planned, this was targeted, this was left-wing political violence. And we've now got all the evidence we need. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Okay, so if you guys are paying attention, the mainstream media is still doing what they always do. They're being extra cautious, claiming, we don't know the motive here. It's always the same double standard. If it can be twisted or perceived as a right-wing attack, they jump on that motive, but the moment it's connected to them and their rhetoric, all of a sudden, oh, well, we don't know for the next 2 frickin' weeks, probably the next 2 years, most likely indefinitely, forever. Basically across the board in the mainstream and also on social media, the left has gone into their reflexive, defensive mode immediately. There's now a story showing family statements out there that, quote, he wasn't a radical and he didn't hate ICE. But of course, that's expected. We've already basically exposed the family as being rabid, anti-Trump, hardcore leftist activists. And so, you could suggest that there might be an incentive to protect their son and protect their political beliefs, maybe even protect them as being the ones who radicalized their son down this left-wing path. And of course, the typical characters are running with this story. You got conspiracy theory pieces being pushed by Hasanabi. Quote, the narrative on the Dallas, Texas shooting is falling apart. Really, it's falling apart. Yeah, no, obviously it isn't. And we've got a whole bunch of information suggested that this whole thing was orchestrated, it was planned. We've also got messages and notes from the shooter himself, which I covered in another video that should be releasing shortly after this one. But yeah, they're taking the statements of the family and attempting to spin this. And I wonder why that would be, especially coming from Hasanabi. It couldn't possibly be. The eerie similarity in terms of his profile picture and the shooter's profile picture, I don't know, can't put my finger on it. Yeah, obviously, he was a communist, a left-wing revolutionary communist, just like Hassan. Not saying that Hassan's a mass shooter, of course not, but clearly he was part of your left-wing side. It really shouldn't even be a conversation. It's not up for debate. And well, it isn't. And you know what? It's not just the ideological connection. No, it goes a whole lot further than that in terms of left-wing complicity, because we're now learning that apparently the shooter in this instance was searching ICE tracking apps.
The evidence is clear that this was intended as an assault on ICE personnel who come to work every day to do their job. The shooter used the ICE tracking apps. Anyone who creates or distributes these apps that is designed to spot, track, and locate ICE officers are well aware of the dangers that they are exposing to law enforcement. It's a casting call to invite bad actors to attack law enforcement officers. It's no different than giving a hitman the location of their intended target, and this is exactly what we saw happen in Dallas yesterday. The media has been amplifying these apps even as we warned them it would only lead to more attacks on law enforcement. We truly wish we didn't have to say, I told you so, but here we are. ICE continues to prioritize the safety and security of our personnel, detained aliens, and facilities. We will do everything possible to increase security to counter the increased wave of these lethal attacks. Again, we call on those who foment violence and vilify our law enforcement officers to cease the dangerous rhetoric. We also call on law-abiding Americans everywhere to report any suspicious activity. The individual that was out there yesterday shooting at our agents and our officers was trying to take the lives of law enforcement people doing their job. Instead, he killed a detainee and shot 2 others. That is something that's unacceptable. The rhetoric that's out there on social media, the rhetoric that is being said by some community leaders in other states needs to stop.
And if you don't understand the context here, you might be a little bit confused, but we were covering the creation of these apps back in, I think, roughly midsummer, when the mass deportation efforts started to kick in high gear and started to move into California. Leftist activists were creating tools in order to monitor and follow federal officers, with an explicit effort to dox them, to find them, so that radical leftoids can show up and protest, in other words, violent riots and obstruction of official law enforcement operations.
Administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. Senator Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app. It is anonymous. Aaron says he doesn't collect any user data. And what I think is really interesting about this in this moment is we've seen so many of the biggest leaders in tech supporting President Trump, but Aaron is sort of an example of the fact that there are people within the tech industry who are really resistant to Trump's policies. I asked him what he would say to those tech leaders who, for example, were at the inauguration. Here's what he told me. Take a listen.
I understand that you have shareholders to report to. I understand that you have employees that need their paychecks. But at what point do you say enough is enough?
And John, I should say that ICE did not respond when I asked them about this platform and about Aaron's opposition to their activity.
And the mainstream media, of course, ran these glowing pieces on these brave, brave souls. Oh, how incredible. And I remember covering those stories and saying, I was warning that those were dangerous tools that were going to be used to harm ICE officers. And lo and behold, that prediction unfortunately once again became true. It's now confirmed that the shooter in this case was using that app to surveil ICE to find them, and then he went on to commit this horrific act. Yeah, I'd say that's more than correlation. It's not just the ideological similarity. No, he was also using the left's activist tools. That is direct operational use of left-wing activist infrastructure to commit an act of terror. It is undeniable at this point. There's no more debate. There's no more conversation. No matter how many times Hasanabi tells his viewers that the narrative is falling apart. No, the narrative is extremely secure. In fact, it's more secure today than it was yesterday. And what I'm covering in this video is only a fraction of the information that's been released so far. We also learned from Kash Patel that apparently just days prior to this shooting, the shooter in this case was researching Charlie Kirk's shooting. And now, of course, that could have just been a natural effect of following the news cycle. But really, just a couple days ago, Charlie Kirk was murdered 2 weeks ago. And yet this guy was searching up those videos just a couple days prior to committing this heinous act, as he was also researching ballistics. And then he went on to commit a copycat kill from a rooftop using a scoped rifle and engraved his bullets. He, by the way, used a very similar rifle than Tyler Robinson. Yeah, I don't know. Seems like he was inspired by the Tyler Robinson killing. Seems that he is clearly a communist with left-wing anti-ICE beliefs. He was inspired by Democrat activism and rhetoric. He was also using Democrat activist infrastructure. And yet the left wants to deny. They want to claim, oh, we don't know. No, we frickin' know. We frickin' know. And clearly they're acting partisan and they're claiming that we're acting partisan, but we really aren't. It's not even about left versus right. I'm not trying to defend the right or make a partisan attack targeting the left. I do that all the time, of course. I'm certainly guilty of being partisan, but this is well beyond that. This is just reality. We've got these wannabe revolutionary communist types who are turning violent. We have real-world left-wing terror. And I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but we cannot let you dishonest leftoids gaslight us into thinking that this is a both sides issue. It is not. This was yet again another left-wing act of terror, and there is no argument left to be had. The facts are absolutely clear, and if you deny them, you are a conspiracy theorist, at least until we get some information proving otherwise. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.